11 factions? This seems like a job for yours truly. What's up, dudes and dudettes?
Major League Butt Kicking is back in town! Oh yeah!
Thanks, Mikey. But seriously, we got ourselves a zesty dose of news at E3 for all kinds of games, but I'll cut to the chase. Total War 3 Kingdoms, that's why you're here, that's what it says in the title. It's gonna have 11 playable factions. There will be a lack of factions in the game. I'm gonna rule that one highly unlikely. Told ya. So 11 playable factions. Obviously that means there will be more than 11 factions in the game. There should be, or I'll be disappointed. And we already know 3 for certain. But here's the deal. I am going to predict, in my infinite wisdom, down to the starting location and faction leader, what all 11 factions will be. Using my knowledge of both the historical era and the novel, as well as my knowledge of playing a butt-ton of video games in my entire life, I'm going to predict with nigh 100% accuracy who our playable cast of characters will be. I'm gonna put my life on the line here. If I get any more than 2 of those factions wrong, I will commit sudoku. That's right, I will solve a very complicated Japanese number puzzle and will likely die from the frustration-induced migraine. So let's get started. Number 1. Cao Cao. This one is pretty obvious. He's already been announced and he's kind of a big deal. I made a whole video about him based on the trailer that dropped, but here's a brief summation. He's a talented strategist and tactician who has a bit of a mean streak. He is the primary antagonist of the novel, and is one of the founders of the anti-Dongzhuo coalition, the starting event of the game. Thus, Cao Cao will clearly start in his home province of Qiao with a handful of family members who are his generals. We're looking at the 2 Xiaohos, Yuan and Dun, along with probably Cao Ren and Cao Hong. We might also start with or be able to recruit Yue Jin and Li Dian very early. Cao Cao will start as a member of that coalition, and I'm calling it now. That coalition is going to be a loose alliance of the various warlords, probably with some non-aggression pacts and some military access, and that's about it, that will break apart in a scripted event. After securing a number of regions, your faction will become known as Wei. Number 2. Liu Bei. Another confirmed faction. Liu Bei is the primary protagonist of the novel, and is the founder of one of the 3 kingdoms, Shu, also known as Shu Han. Liu Bei claimed to have blood relation to the imperial family, though this could have simply been bogus. He was good friends with a number of different lords, including Gongsun Zan and Liu Zhong. He spent a large degree of his career moving from place to place, often chased around by Cao Cao, and he accumulated a number of famous and well-known generals and heroes. Now here's the thing, Liu Bei will begin either without a starting region, or will be based in Gaotang in Shu province, depending on whether romance mode or classic mode is chosen. You see, in the novel, Liu Bei joins the coalition against Dongzhuo under the banner of his friend Gongsun Zan, and will likely start close to the front lines. In classic mode, however, it'll be a bit different. Liu Bei will be based out of Gaotong in Shu province, where he historically was the prefect at the time, because Liu Bei actually had 0 involvement in the coalition against Dongzhuo in history. Liu Bei will of course start with his 2 sworn brothers, the legendary Guan Yu and Zhong Fei. Starting generals besides that, we're cutting it pretty slim. But some early recruits will include Jianyong, Mi Ju, and Sun Qian, not to be confused with Sun Quan, some of Liu Bei's earliest advisors. The region Liu Bei is famous for dwelling in is quite far from where he'll start out. But once again, I'm predicting, once your faction as Liu Bei controls both Chengdu and Honzhong, your faction is going to become known as Shu. Number 3. Sun Jian. Another confirmed faction. Sun Jian is patriarch of his clan, and was highly active in the campaign against Dongzhuo. In history, he achieved many great victories, including besting Hua Xiong and Lu Bu, some of Dongzhuo's top officers. Now, in the novel, he retains that status as a competent general, but he often falls victim to the ploys of the other coalition lords, namely Yuan Shu and Yuan Shao, due to their jealousy and concerns over his growing influence. After the coalition falls apart, he's killed in action fighting against Liu Biao at the behest of Yuan Shu. Sun Jian's eldest son, Sun Ce, would serve Yuan Shu for a few years before striking out on his own, conquering a large swath of territories in Wu in a very short amount of time. Sun Tzu would die young, assassinated by political rivals, or cursed by a Taoist mystic, whichever one you prefer, and his brother, Sun Jian's second son, Sun Quan, would take the reins and eventually become the Emperor of Eastern Wu. How Creative Assembly will handle that particular dynamic of secession, I'm not sure. But Sun Jian will likely start with territory in Changsha, where he was the administrator at the time. He will also likely be a vassal of Yuan Shu. However, Sun Jian's army will be far away from his home territory and start on the front lines of the coalition. For starting generals, we're likely to see the three most well-known of Sun Jian's subordinates, Huang Gai, Han Dong, and Cheng Pu. But it doesn't stop there. We could also see individuals like his brother Sun Jing or a young Sun Ce joining the fight early. We could even see Zhu Mao if it's before Washang kills him. Number 4. Liu Bu. The name is iconic to anyone even remotely familiar with Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Let's face it, you know Romance of the Three Kingdoms probably from Dynasty Warriors, and who do you know from Dynasty Warriors? Liu Bu. And I'm calling it now too. Liu Bu will be our pre-order bonus / day 1 DLC. I mean, no one's gonna pre-order this so they can play as Yuan Shao. Despite being in only about 15% of the novel, and not even living to the Three Kingdoms period, because remember that shit starts in 220, Liu Bu is one of the best known figures from the end of the Han Dynasty. He was known for being an exceptional warrior, cavalier, and archer, and he was also known for his brutishness, active disloyalty, and never being too far behind of a military blunder. Liu Bu was from Inner Mongolia, and originally took service under a Han general named Ding Yuan. When Dong Zhuo took power in the capital, Ding Yuan opposed it. However, Dong Zhuo managed to entice Liu Bu to slay Ding Yuan and join him instead. Liu Bu became one of his best-known officers, and at times served as his personal bodyguard. Eventually, after Dong Zhuo retreated from Luoyang to Chang'an, Liu Bu conspired with an imperial minister named Wang Yun to betray and kill Dong Zhuo. He may have also had an affair with one of Dong Zhuo's concubines, which is kinda not so cool. While Liu Bu succeeded, he was subsequently chased out of Chang'an and turned into a wandering vagabond, culminating in him trying and failing to obtain lands of his own. First with Yan Province, which belonged to Cao Cao, and later Shu Province, which belonged to Liu Bei. So, Liu Bu, I'm predicting, will start as a vassal of sorts to Dong Zhuo. And I'm picking him to be playable over Dong Zhuo's faction because there's much more potential for Liu Bu to branch out on his own after, you know, because we're starting with the coalition, which is going to end in the defeat of Dong Zhuo no matter which way you slice it. So he's probably going to start with an elite army, but very little else. Eventually, he'll get an opportunity to assassinate Dong Zhuo, permanently splitting up Dong Zhuo's forces into various remnants like Wu Se and Li Jue. As far as generals go, well, I think it's fairly obvious Liu Bu will likely begin with the famous Zhang Liao under his command. We'll probably also see Gao Shun, who was Liu Bu's greatest commander, at start or acquire him fairly early. Others like Song Xian and Cao Shu and all those guys and Chen Gong, we're gonna have to wait until you invade Yan Province. Number 5. Yuan Shao. I'm picking him as our northeastern faction over Gongsun Zan, mostly because Yuan Shao is the more notable and powerful of the two, and having both would be a little redundant. Yuan Shao was a statesman and a general from a distinguished family. He was the leader of the coalition against Dong Zhuo in both history and novel. Yuan Shao occupied an area in the north known as Runnan and also Bohai, and he would frequently war with his rival, Gongsun Zan, as well as having frequent bouts with the Black Mountain Bandits and Northern Nomads. Eventually, Yuan Shao consolidated a great amount of power and clashed with Cao Cao at the Battle of Guandu in 200. Yuan Shao would lose and die 2 years later without naming an heir, which, if you know your history, that's always a bad thing. His 3 sons proceeded to war against each other and Cao Cao for 6 years until they were finally stamped out completely in 207. Yuan Shao was a difficult individual. He was talented and brave when it came to military affairs, but was also prone to indecisiveness and getting caught up with political scheming, which would lead to his eventual downfall. He also had a half-brother named Yuan Shu, who operated out of Huainan and Hefei, and briefly declared himself emperor in 197, before being utterly crushed by, you guessed it, Cao Cao. Yuan Shao will begin as the leader of the coalition, with territories in Bohai, which is modern-day Hebei. For starting generals, Yuan Shao is likely to bring out his best in the forms of Yan Liang and Wen Chou, touted in the novel as two of Yuan Shao's top generals. We'll also likely see his sons early on as well, and other important individuals like his advisors Guo Tu, Tian Feng, and Zhu Shou. Number 6. Liu Biao. Operating out of Jing Province, which is one of the most desirable and wealthy provinces in Three Kingdoms China, is Liu Biao. Often not explored very thoroughly in a lot of Three Kingdoms media, Liu Biao is, in fact, one of the most powerful warlords of the era. He fought numerous battles against the Sun clan and Yuan Shu, and was a major concern to the flanks of Cao Cao. Liu Biao, by and large, remained relatively neutral otherwise. He was kind of like ancient China's Switzerland, in a way, and did not participate actively in the coalition against Dong Zhuo. Liu Biao would eventually take in a fleeing Liu Bei, granting him shelter for a number of years until Liu Biao passed away. Afterwards, his successor Liu Cong would surrender to a now very powerful Cao Cao in 208, and that kicks off the chain of events that would lead to the famous Battle of Chirbi, or the Battle of Red Cliff, during the winter. Liu Biao's chief enemies would most likely be Yuan Shu and Sun Jian, as well as various pirates and bandits, and he'll probably control a sizable portion of Jing Province. For generals, he'll definitely be bringing along Huang Zu, Huan Zhong, and Kuai Liang. No, not that Kuai Liang. We would also certainly see the likes of Gan Ning join his forces a little further down the road. Number 7. Ma Teng. Ma Teng will be our northwest China faction, located in northern Inner Mongolia in a region known as Liang. Liang is notable for the numerous times Ma Teng and his pals like Han Sui managed to flat out just rebel against the Han and get away with it. Ma Teng was very friendly with the Qiang, a group of Proto-Tibetan barbarians, and they had frequent alliances. However, the lands of Liang and the Ma family become increasingly important as we head towards the Three Kingdoms era. For starters, Ma Teng fought against both Dong Zhuo and Sun Jian a few years prior to the start date of 190, when they were tasked with putting down Ma Teng's rebellion. This somehow ended with Ma Teng earning a military title granted by the imperial court. I don't know how that works, but hey, whatever. Ma Teng would later fight against Guo Si and Li Jue, two Dong Zhuo loyalists who chased Lu Bu out of Chang'an and took possession of the emperor. Further down the line, Ma Teng was invited to Yi in 212 by Cao Cao so that he could broker peace with the various warring factions within the larger area of Liang. Ma Teng's eldest son, Ma Chao, rose up in rebellion, leading to Ma Teng's execution along with his entire family, except for Ma Chao. Ma Chao would team up with Han Sui and the Qiang and go to war against Cao Cao in 212 at the Battle of Tong Pass. Cao Cao would win, and Ma Chao would go on to first join Liu Zhong and then later Liu Bei. I'm willing to bet that Ma Teng will start, in Liang, and will be focused on balancing relations with the Han and the Qiang. He will likely be allied with Han Sui, who I'm calling it is going to be his own faction that you can confederate with. Ma Teng will be bringing along some lesser notable generals like Yan Sheng and Cheng Yi. However, Liang will rarely be packing a punch when Ma Teng's son, Ma Chao, comes of age with his subordinate Peng De following not too far behind. Number 8. Liu Yan. I know what you're thinking. Who the hell is Liu Yan? You mean Liu Yao? No, you idiot, I mean Liu Yan. You see, you probably know his more famous son, Liu Zhong, who ruled over Chengdu until it was conquered by Liu Bei. A lot of Lius in this game, huh? However, in 190, Liu Zhong's father, Liu Yan, was still alive and ruling over the area. Liu Yan ruled the mountainous eastern lands with his capital in Chengdu in a province known as Yi. He met Liu Bei during the Yellow Turban Rebellion and adopted him as a nephew. Liu Yan's son, Liu Zhong, would take over upon his death in 194. Liu Zhong was Yan's youngest son. His older brothers would be tortured and killed by Guo Si and Li Jue, and that would certainly give a young Liu Zhong some motivation from a gameplay perspective. Additionally, Liu Zhong will be contending with the Five Pecks of Rice sect. a Taoist militant organization not dissimilar to the Yellow Turbans in the northern territory of Hanzhong, led by Zhang Lu. In 211, Liu Zhang would invite his adopted cousin Liu Bei to aid him against Zhang Lu. At this point, Liu Bei, now controlling lands in Jing, would arrive under the pretense of being an ally, though ultimately he would betray Liu Zhang and take Chengdu for himself. Liu Zhang surrendered to Liu Bei and was allowed to live out the rest of his days. For generals, Liu Yan will be bringing, of course, his heir, Liu Zhong, as well as maybe his brothers, and a few more minor generals. Of note would be the presence of Gan Ning, who was subservient to Liu Yan for a few years until his death in 194. Alright, are you ready? Because here's where we start to take some real gambles. Number 9! Zhang Yan and the Black Mountain Bandits. Alright, hear me out on this one. Considering the importance of the Yellow Turban Rebellion, and the fact that the game is skipping the start of the rebellion, Creative Assembly is probably going to want to include a playable Yellow Turban remnant faction in the game. Now, there are numerous ones to choose from. You got the White Wave Bandits that Cao Cao's General Xu Huang was originally part of, or the Bandits of Mount Tai, which allied themselves with Lu Bu and then later Cao Cao during the Battle of Sha Pi, or even the various bandits in Qing Province, which were subjugated by Cao Cao. Geez, that Cao Cao guy gets around, right? The BMBs, for short, I'm coining that term by the way, were a collection of outlaws, many of whom were former Yellow Turban rebels turned bandits. And it was started by Zhang Yan around 188 or so. Early gameplay will likely see Zhang Yan confederating various other bandit chiefs within the mountains, such as Li Damu and Yu Bigen and Bo Rao and others. So many of the rebels' names are actually nicknames relating to something about their character, which could certainly make for an eclectic cast of heroes. The BMBs would ally themselves with Gongsun Zan and fight against Yuan Shao for years. In addition, they were friendly with the southern Xiongnu as well. Eventually, Zhang Yuan would submit to Cao Cao in 205. Man, what is it with Cao Cao and bandits, huh? All this in mind, I think the BMBs being playable are actually more likely than others like Zhang Lu and Liu Yao. Number 10. Yu Fulou and the Southern Xiongnu. Alright, at the risk of putting too much focus on Northeast China, I'm pretty sure the Xiongnu will be in the game, and they're gonna be playable. Yu Fulou, who was the Chan Yu, or Khan at the time, was actually a participant in the anti-Dongzhuo coalition, giving us a chance to see some hot Nomad on Han action very early in the game. The Southern Xiongnu was a confederation of various proto-Mongolic tribes, and the Xiongnu were very likely the same confederation who were pushed westward into Europe and became known as the Huns. During the end of the Han Dynasty, the Xiongnu were in decline, already being overtaken by the Wu Huan and the Shan Bei. However, they were still kind of relevant. The Xiongnu were enemies of both Gongsun Zan and later Yuan Shao after the end of the coalition, and would later battle for Cao Cao for a short time before being just absorbed into the state of Cao Wei and into the armies as auxiliaries. The Xiongnu would be interesting from a gameplay perspective as well, which is why I'm inkling towards the inclusion. They'd be different from all the other factions, because we definitely see some nomadic features to them, and their army makeup would be quite a bit different from the standard Han armies. Number 11. This was a real toss-up between two very possible options, and I was torn about it for a while. But I gotta give it to the Nan-Man and Nanzhong over Vietnam. The Nan-Man are just better known for the Three Kingdoms period, partly due to Zhuge Liang's campaigns in Nanzhong in the 220s, but the Nan-Man had been around for long before that. In fact, Ma Teng's ancestor was responsible for originally suppressing the Nan-Man for the Han Dynasty long before the game's start. So the Nan-Man, who could also be known simply as the Man, or Southern Man, were a confederation of Southeast Asian ethnic groups, including the Hmong, and they occupied the tropical lands south of Yi, where Liu Zhang ruled. For a long time, the lands were subservient to the Han government, though they later rebelled against Shu Han, most famously led by the great king Meng Huo, who was captured in the novel by Zhuge Liang 7 times before he finally surrenders. I guess he was nothing if not stubborn. In the novel, The jungles of Nanjong are fraught with danger. Troops with armor made of iron-resistant rattan, war elephants and battle-trained tigers, poisonous swamps and barbarian kings that are like 9 feet tall. Depending on the game mode, Nanjong could bring some really unique and out-there units to the table, which would be a blast in multiplayer and give the game some real spice. As for the faction leader, well, that's where it becomes hard to kind of speculate. The most obvious choice would be Meng Kuo, though the problem arises with whether he was in power at the time of the game start, and whether he even existed at all. As far as classic mode is concerned, he might be fictional. So instead we might see somebody like Yong Kai in charge. The benefit here is that a lot of the warriors of Nanjong in the novel are fictional, so that gives a large degree of flexibility to who we could see roll out as generals. You got your King Wu Tugus and your Ahui Nans, but you also have others like Gao Ding and Zhu Bao, who are very real people. But seriously, I'm looking forward to after they show us the real obvious factions, what the oddballs are going to be. I think the last 3 might be a bit of a stretch, especially the BMBs, but you never know. While we're at it, here's some possible alternative factions we could see if you're curious and I happen to be wrong, but I don't think I am. Gong Sun Zan, Yuan Shao, Liu Yao, Yan Baihu, Wang Long, Gong Zhuo, Wu Si, Li Jue, Zhang Xiu. Oh, it goes on and on. Han Fu, Zhang Miao, Tao Qian. Yeesh. Did I say Yuan Shu? I don't... So what do you think? Do you think I'm right on the money? Or should I start brushing up on my sudoku skills? Comment below and tell me how stupid I am for being super wrong, because obviously Yan Baihu, the benevolent king of East Wu, is going to be a playable faction, bitch. Oh my god, why don't you understand?